Okay, welcome to this week's episode of The Path Less Chosen, the podcast showing you the careers they don't teach you about in school. My name's Sol.
I'm Jamie.
And today we have Mikaela on. And Mikaela is a food freedom nutritionist. She's helped over 250 Aussie women deal with eating disorders and also getting a more healthy relationship around food. She teaches women how to love lunch, dessert, how to control their lolly jars whilst maintaining their health. Very interesting topic, I think, for many reasons. Definitely a topic that's affected a lot of people, but also love the idea that it's something that's affected her and she's turned it into a career and a job that she can, clearly live a great life and also live a great life in Bali, which is never a bad thing. So, yeah, Jamie, interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with the work that Mum does, I know a little bit about this kind of stuff. And I think in the day and age with like social media, it's becoming more and more prevalent. I sadly know lots of people who have struggled with this kind of thing. So to hear that she's made a career out of helping people in that position is fantastic. And I think it'll be really interesting just to hear exactly what she does.
For sure. Very interesting subject, very interesting career. Looking forward to getting her on. Perfect. So, without further ado, Mikaela, thank you so much for coming on. If you could just give us a brief introduction as to what you're up to right now.
Oh my goodness, I feel like this question is so loaded all the time because, far out, where do I even begin? I guess, right now with where I'm at is that I've created my business online, and so I am a qualified nutritionist, a binge eating specialist, and I've done extra training study in psychology, so I merge all of it together, and I actually support young women to stop binge eating and heal their relationship with both food and themselves. So I am Australian, people can hear from my accent, but moved to Bali and run my business from here, which is awesome. I love what I do. I work with the most incredible women to literally transform their lives. And I guess my passion comes from myself going through the journey, which I'm sure we'll dive into.
Amazing. Yeah, I definitely want to get into a little bit more about what exactly a binge eating specialist is. But I think maybe to begin with, take us back a little bit then and give us more insight into that story of how you've ended up coming to be a binge eating specialist.
Yeah, for sure. And it's super interesting because growing up as a young girl, I always had the dream of owning my own business eventually, but I always thought it was going to be wedding planning specifically. And I was like, okay, cool. I had my wedding planning book. I was like, I'm going to work with all the bridezillas out there and I'm going to plan all these weddings. And I actually started studying event management in university, but I ended up doing a volunteer event and I hated it. I realized how much you are relying on so many other people and everything goes wrong and it all comes back onto your head. And so I thought, no, this is literally not for me. I had been through my own health journey. I was like, maybe I should test out something that actually is one of my passions, which was nutrition. So I swapped over into studying food science nutrition. I majored in physical activity and health. And throughout that degree, I honestly thought that I would never, ever do one-to-one client work. I thought I had actually no idea where I was going to go with it, but I never thought I would do client coaching. And I actually ended up getting a job with Weight Watchers, which is one of the world's largest weight loss companies, and running group workshops, one-on-one coaching. I was like, this is a little bit interesting. Maybe I do actually like this. I then actually went and did some work placement. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Bigger Cheese, but it's one of the biggest dairy companies in Australia. And so I worked in their food production, food products, with my placement for university, and realized how much I did not want to go down the traditional nutrition route. And I also then didn't want to go down the traditional dietetics route of working in hospitals and things being really clinical. So that's when I thought, well, I need to find something that I'm actually passionate in. And as much as I didn't necessarily agree with the messaging that Weight Watchers was giving to women and people in general, for anyone who doesn't know, Weight Watchers is very tough weight loss, very rigid and not really what I'm about. But it honestly opened my eyes to what it's like to work with people one-on-one and in group settings. And so that's what then actually sparked my passion for okay, I think I'm a people person. I think I could work with people, which was an amazing experience. Really, really incredible. And then I ended up starting my business from there. But the most interesting thing is that my business was actually in the weight loss industry, because I thought that I had found a hole in the market, and boy, I was so wrong. But yeah, that's where the path that led me into actually then starting my own thing.
Wow, amazing. And you said right at the kind of theme about that is you said you were like passionate about nutrition. Where did that passion from nutrition come from?
Yeah, so when I was in grade 9, I got really unwell with a parasite. Totally random. It was just in a small country town in Australia. Got really sick. And I lost so much weight so quickly. I think I lost 10 kilos in, a month and a half or something like that, because nothing that I ate would stay down. And I ended up getting a lot of attention from a lot of boys because I was at that ripe age. And I was like, okay, well, if I lose weight, then that sparks attention. So cue then me going down so many different routes to obviously try and heal from having a parasite. But then also from that, I had to navigate then through wanting to constantly diet and do all of these things to maintain this unhealthy weight that I now was at, because it was unhealthy how I lost it. And so that was really tricky, but that sparked all things for me focusing on nutrition as a holistic approach, and it being something that I can heal my body and come back from being really unwell. But then also I navigated through then going through some pretty disordered eating patterns, binge eating, relationship with food, because I had attached my self-worth to a weight.
So I imagine if you've been through something like that, it could be very easy to want to stay away, as far away from it as possible going forward, because if you've had an issue before with nutrition and with weight, you'd think I'm going to avoid that the rest of my life. But actually you instead looked at it a different way, and it became a passion that you've then ended up doing as a career. So talk us a little bit more about your mindset. Why did it become a passion rather than something you kind of had a hatred towards?
It's interesting because I'm not sure if it even started out as a passion. I think it almost started more out of I can control this. And so because I was trying so many diets, I then wanted to study it so I could control it to a whole nother level. It's interesting. I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's well over 80% of dietitians and nutritionists actually have disordered eating behaviors and patterns, because you learn so much and you're so invested and involved with food and health and your body and exercise. It can become almost obsessive in a way. So I feel like when I first started, it was probably, I like this and I like the control that I'm having over it. If I know more, then I can control it even more. But through that and through starting to study nutrition, I ended up healing my relationship with food. And from that, it then turned into a really, really big passion of mine.
So then that was when you were year 9, you say? So in the next couple of years, talk us through what happened next. Did you go and get a nutrition degree before you then went into Weight Watchers, or did that opportunity of Weight Watchers come up quite early on?
Yep, so finished school and then went into uni, and that's when I started studying event management, and then transitioned over into nutrition because I didn't love event management. And then from there, I was halfway through studying and I started applying for jobs because I wanted experience in the field. The toughest thing in the course that I was studying in is that you didn't get much experience. You didn't get exposure to what it was actually like working in the industry. And in your final year, they only would take 20 students to actually do some form of placement. So, and I think there's maybe 80 in 1 year, or maybe even 100. So very limited number of people even get that exposure of maybe what this work could potentially be. So you don't really have an idea. So that's when I started applying for jobs, and through connections, I got a job at Weight Watchers, and it was a really, truly amazing experience to be able to see what these large corporations are doing out there, what a potential job could be for a nutritionist. But very quickly learnt that it wasn't quite what I was passionate about or interested in, and the weight loss industry is something that you can go one way or another, and there's a lot of misleading information that's also out there.
Yeah, it's fascinating because trying to bring in almost like the profit motive and the corporation bubble into the weight watching industry is such a tricky subject, and especially when you've got these big corporations. So give us a bit of an insight into life in a corporate that its main motive is to, I don't know, is it to sell programs to get women to lose weight? What's their aim?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is to put women on quite low numbers of calories. They use a point system though, so the calories are hidden, and they lose the weight. But of course, through that, they end up causing a really unhealthy relationship with themselves and their body and food, and they have binge eating, and they have metabolic adaptation, which is where their metabolism has adapted to such a low amount. So then once they go off the program, they then regain all of the weight that they have lost. which then means they get to sign back up because these corporations make you believe that you can't actually do this without them. So then there's this cycle. And I always used to say to people, any program or anything that tells you that you get to be a life member of it is obviously not something that's going to be sustainable, because you don't want to be a life member of a weight loss company. It's mind-blowing. And I specifically remember the day that I went home and I typed up my resignation email was the day that I had this 75-year-old woman come in, and she had this trip booked to Europe with her partner, and she hopped on the scales and she had gone up a couple of 100 grams, and she stood there and she just broke down in tears. And she was so petrified to go to Europe to eat the pasta and the pizza and have the ice cream. And her partner had said to her, I am not sacrificing my holiday for you to do this diet and to count all these points. And she was so petrified and walked away from that bit like heartbroken. I thought, us women cannot live our lives only ever striving to lose weight and be so attached to a number on the scales that behind the scenes we're binging or we're stressing about holidays, birthdays, social events, that we're not actually living our life. And at the end of the day, this is it. This is our one shot at life. We do not get to come back and do any of this. So it's so important that we are that healthiest, that best version of ourselves. I don't have an issue with body composition goals, and I definitely don't have an issue with people wanting to lose weight. So that was never the problem, because when I started my own business, when I was still working at Weight Watchers, it was in the weight loss industry, and I thought, great. You know, there's people who are out here promoting women to lose weight in a really crash diet kind of way, get results real quick, but then you rebound back the weight back on. And so I thought, well, I could help women lose the weight in a much more sustainable, then they could actually maintain the results and live their life. However, quickly learned that people don't want sustainable weight loss. People want a quick fix. They want something shiny, and sustainable weight loss is not sexy. People are like, I'm not spending 12 months on this. This is crazy. So the market wasn't really there for it, nor did I feel like I had the passion for it. I never wanted to post before and after pictures of my clients. I never wanted to make this super low calorie meal, and I was ending up really burnt out myself because I felt my business was becoming a massive chore. And so the day that I actually quit Weight Watchers was the day that I flipped my entire business on its head and just took the massive leap of faith to be like, I'm going to do something that actually aligns with me and I'm actually passionate about.
From what you're kind of explaining there, it sounds like it was a brilliant experience because you learned exactly how like a big corporation like this worked. It wasn't doing it for like altruistic means. It was selling this like big shiny product, like you say, a big quick fix. And it was more focused on like profiting rather than actually solving a problem of like weight and body image or whatever around that topic. So do you look back on it fondly then and think that's actually shaped what you're able to do now because you had all of these learnings during your time there?
100%. It taught me so much. It taught me how to be a good coach, how to do one-on-one coaching, how to run group coaching. It also taught me so much about the industry, and so many of my clients obviously come from that world, right? I have clients who've been on Weight Watchers since they were 14 years old.
Wow.
And are now in their 40s or 50s, right? So there's so many women who come from that world that I'm now able to guide them into a completely different space. So I think it was really important for me to be exposed to that and learn the ins and outs of it.
You say you flipped your business on its head, right? So you were running your business on the side as doing the Weight Watchers stuff. And was that because you were like, I know I want to leave Weight Watchers, but I want to build up a bit of a base before I know that I can to leave properly?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I was in this transition where I was like, I don't know if I want to go and get a full-time job in nutrition somewhere else. I knew Weight Watchers wasn't a forever thing for me, but I also really wanted to do my own thing. So I would do Weight Watchers during the day, and then I would come home and I'd do my business at night, or I'd do it on the weekends, or I'd split my days into two. And I was really trying to build that up. It never got to a point where it could sustain me full time, and so when I flipped it on its head, I didn't earn any money for I think it was three months straight. I didn't have a single cent coming into my bank account. We then added so much stress, right? I wasn't sleeping. I was up at like 4 a.m. every morning trying to work, be like, how can I get clients in this new industry that I was going into, or part of the health industry that I was going into. And it was so tough because my whole Instagram that I had for, I think maybe it was a year and a half, 2 years for running my business, was all weight loss focused. And now I'd gone from promoting weight loss to promoting food freedom, binge eating, heal your relationship with your food, with your body and food. my audience didn't want that. They wanted weight loss. So that was so hard in the first couple of months of transitioning.
So maybe talk through a little bit about like what gave you the conviction, like during those few months where you weren't earning any money. Did you remain like pretty resilient? You were like, no, I'm definitely making the right decision. This is the best thing. I definitely need to do this.
Pretty sure I cried every single day, but I'm like, trust the process. I was so stressed. And honestly, my partner, he is amazing. We are polar opposites. I could be so stressed and he's like, we're all good. Life's fine. If I didn't have him, I'm not sure if I would have continued through it. Right. He was the one who kept being like, you will get to the other side. All of this work's going to pay off. Just keep going. I definitely experienced a fair amount of self-doubt and can I do this? Is this okay? I haven't earned any money for a couple of months. When's the next paycheck going to come through? I have to pay my bills and rent. And I just honestly trust the process. And I think at the end of the day, he always said, what's the worst thing that could come from this? If you have to go and become an Uber Eats driver or a DoorDash driver to get a couple of extra bits of money to keep building this, that's fine. You know, that's actually okay. And if that's the worst thing that comes out of it, you're doing fine. You're doing great. And so, yeah, it was hard to keep going, but I would do it all over again to build what I've built today.
Love that.
How did you start getting momentum, getting clients? Talk us through that bit.
Yeah, so I launched a program and it was called Elevate Your Life. And I learned so much through that because I feel I had this dream and passion of, and I knew what I wanted, but I was not very good at communicating it across. And so Elevate Your Life, people were like, well, I don't know what that means. Maybe that's elevate your life in business or relationships. It wasn't directed at what I was wanting to do. And I feel maybe I was still in this fuzzy area of I was leaving weight loss industry and I knew what I wanted to go into, but I was still attached to aspects of the weight loss world, and I had to learn through and let go of that myself. So I actually started working with a coach myself and did so much work on me, my emotion, mental state, how I show up as a business owner. And that's when I then changed everything. And that's when I rebranded to literally be Undiet, which is now my program that I do sell, because it's pretty clear. Undiet, you're no longer dieting and you're literally healing your relationship with both food and yourself. Since I made that transition and then started to promote my Instagram completely different way, detach from weight loss, share facts, connect with people, my Instagram actually started to grow from there. And then my partner, he does marketing. So he's helped me through the whole marketing side of running ads and getting people in, which has honestly been the best thing for my business ever. And it was so interesting because I only ever followed people who told you that social media was the way to get your business going and to get new clients coming through. And Instagram is great and I love social media for that. However, you can only sell to your current audience a number of times before you need new people coming through. Ads, best thing ever. It literally gets me new people in the door every single day. And that is how we've been able to really, really grow the business.
I know Sol and I, like, we listen to a lot of like the Alex Hormozy stuff, and he's the biggest advocate for paid ads there is out there, right? So I think definitely such an important thing. So would that be one of your key bits of advice to anyone out there that's trying to build something for themselves, is to never underestimate the value that social media and paid ads can maybe bring to building something like this?
100%, absolutely. And especially for being a female in business as well, I feel that it can be quite daunting and maybe a little bit scary to dive into that world. And because I swear every single female that I do follow only talks about promoting yourself to your social media and being able to generate 6 figures from your followers. And that's amazing and great. And you absolutely can do that. But if you want to then take it further than that, you're going to have to reach out and do the paid ads to be able to lean on that. And I always say paid ads gets new people in the door, and then your social media personal brand is kind of like the shop front. People will always check you out and see if you have social proof through social media. Even if you think about going to a new cafe or restaurant, how often do you open up Instagram and you're like, let me just have a look at their menu, let me just see what type of food and coffee they sell. We all check for social proof these days. So ads is great, but you still want to make sure that you have that personal brand or that shop front through social media as well.
One thing I wanted to ask on, how do you stay like up to date with what are the right things to promote, but also the bits that people are interested in and even struggling with? How do you make sure that that's consistent throughout the personal brand that you present?
Yeah, I think it's so much about me just staying in my own lane. and promoting what I know, and not getting it mixed, because there is so much misleading information out there, right? And my clients come to me every other day with this new fad diet trend, detox drink, yada yada yada, that somebody and some random has promoted on TikTok. And when we look at the science and the study of so many of these things, even something that's so heavily promoted like intermittent fasting, the science for intermittent fasting is predominantly done on males, and any studies that are done on females are done on overweight or obese females. And so then if you have average Joe Blow who's promoting intermittent fasting to just an average woman, it's only doing more harm than any good. And same as keto diet. That diet was only ever designed for children with epilepsy. It was never designed as a weight loss diet. Yet somebody one day has taken it and run with it. And so for me, it's more about just educating people on, at the end of the day, you're a grown-ass adult. You can actually go and do whatever you want to do. And if that's doing a diet, that's doing a diet. But as long as you're doing educated and you know the pros and the cons of it. So for me, it's more about educating people around that, and then they can make the decision themselves.
It's so interesting you say about all those diets, because I watch your content and I find it so fascinating. And I'm just as guilty as being like, maybe I should try this carnivore one, or maybe I should do this. And like, the difference it makes is so marginal, if it makes any difference at all. And the emotional burden it puts on people is like catastrophic. The actual effect, it might maybe like a second quicker in my 5K run. Like, is that really worth going and doing a whole new shop? I don't know. So you must get that the whole time. Is it a frustration, or is it something that you really commit to thinking, okay, I'm going to change the public perception of these diets and these attitudes?
I just want to change and educate so many women around what is out there. And I wouldn't say it's a frustration at all, because I get the appeal behind them. They're sexy. You're like, great, this is a new thing that I can focus on. And us humans, we like to have that. And that's okay. But the thing is, and all of the women that I work with, their mental exhaustion from thinking about food all the time, from the guilt and the shame that they feel about eating dessert or a spontaneous croissant out with their best friend, or a dessert run, it's so much more harmful on their bodies than any food that they could actually eat. They're not enjoying aspects of their life or being able to spend quality time with friends or family, because they're mentally so fixated on food, what they should have, what they shouldn't have, and the guilt and shame that comes with that. So the more women that I can help navigate through that, the better.
For sure. How do you find the burden of probably speaking to a lot of people daily who struggle with food, and for yourself, the emotional part about, that having that burden on your shoulders, as well as also dealing with your own food relationship alongside that?
This is exactly why I had to go and study in psychology as well on top of my nutrition, because there is a lot of what I do is the mental side of it and the psychological side of it. There's a nutrition aspect, of course, but a lot of it, I always describe it to my clients of, imagine an onion, you peel back those layers of that onion, and guaranteed you peel back the first couple and like, oh, hello, there's so much more underneath here than what I realized was there. And so much of it is life experiences that they have had through their life that have just shaped these core beliefs that they have around food. And it could be something as simple as a child, they were told that they always had to finish everything on their plate and they couldn't leave the table until it was done. And they still have that ingrained into them today. So for me, I've had to set such strict boundaries, because it can be so emotionally heavy around, still work in progress, might I add. Like, I'm not perfect at this at all, but the boundaries I have to set around making sure that my cup is actually topped up and I'm not getting emotionally drained or burnt out as well. And I've hit burnout so many times to have to learn that. And even this week, I've started making sure that my phone is actually turned off on Sundays, and from 7 p.m. I don't get notifications. Otherwise, I could work all hours of the day, and I'm just thinking about it all the time, because it is so emotional. So it's so important that those boundaries are there so that I can handle it. But with navigating through I think because I have come so far in my journey and I have such a healthy relationship with food, it doesn't impact me in any way, shape or form. I think the coolest thing about it is I have clients who have been to clinical dietitians, psychologists, hospitals, and they say that nothing compares to having that coaching where somebody has actually been through the journey and understands every single point of it and can relate to it as well. It's just such a different style. My programs and coaching is very relaxed. It's very friendly with a lot of my clients.
Would you give as like a kind of word of a warning to people that were maybe considering coming into this, that you need to be very much comfortable with yourself and confident that you've overcome any kind of issues before you even think about doing this as a career?
Absolutely, because it is so highly emotional. You're dealing with so many emotions from other people. It's quite stressful, but also you're listening to people all day, every day about their food troubles, right? And you're guiding them through that. You want to be able to guide that without taking any of that on yourself and knowing that you can still back yourself 110%.
Amazing. I'd love to touch on the life of remote working, something I feel very passionate about. How is living in Bali, do you think, it really benefits your business? Is it a lifestyle move? Why have you decided to relocate out of Australia?
Yeah, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day because I feel that there's this idea of what the nomad laptop lifestyle looks like. And the reality of it is so far from the truth. Most of my days, I'm working at the moment 10 to 12 hours, which I do not promote, and I totally understand is not sustainable for long periods of time. But I'm not sitting by the pool every day sunbaking in Bali. However, I do find that for my business, it has been amazing because of the community and because obviously being an entrepreneur, it can be so incredibly lonely and you can be quite isolated and in your own head, and it's not like you can have the, what do they call it, like the water fountain talk in the office where you're filling up your water bottle and you have a chit chat to the other person, right? You don't get that. Whereas Bali has such a strong community and foundation of other people doing similar things. So being able to have that connection for me has meant that I've been able to create a bit more of a balance where I can still work, but I have a social life. I can go to co-working and connect with other people. And then of course the weather is amazing. So then in spare time, you're actually out, you're off at the beach, or you're going on hikes, or you're traveling somewhere rather than sitting at home on Netflix because it's pouring down with rain and 3 degrees outside. So for me, it's a lifestyle move, but also my business benefits from it majorly.
We're going to ask you the final question, which we ask all our guests. So if you were to go back to a time, it could be whatever you want. It could be when you were struggling with nutrition, perhaps, or when you're working Weight Watchers and seeing what was going on there. What we'd like to know, one thing you tell yourself, we'd like to know one thing you do the same, one thing you do differently, and one thing you tell yourself to motivate yourself.
Yeah, I love this question and it got me thinking so much. The one thing that I would do the same is that I would pivot my business into something that I'm actually passionate about. Continuing to stay in something that wasn't working felt like I was just flogging a dead horse. It wasn't working, I was miserable, I was burning out, and it became such a chore. So absolutely, pivoting my business, best thing I've ever done. The one thing that I do differently is I would stop playing so small. I feel like a good 1.5 to 2 years, I was so scared of taking risks. I was so scared about making financial investments that I was playing so small that things were just happening so slowly. So I would take bigger risks earlier on and just absolutely send it in the business and trust the process. And then the one thing that I would tell myself to motivate myself to be deep, Mikaela. And I feel like this is where I actually have to remind myself that everything's going to be okay. It's not that deep. You don't have to cry. You don't have to be stressed. If you're not going to care about it in 5 years' time, don't worry about it now. Just keep moving that needle forwards. And even today, I feel it takes me a lot to bring me back to the present moment and take a step back and just be like, yes, you have big goals and you're striving for it and things can be stressful and you have to work hard. But also, look where you live. You don't cook, you don't clean, you don't do your laundry, you get to go to the beach on the weekends, you've created an amazing community. Live in that present moment and enjoy the journey because there is not really a destination on it.
Amazing. Yeah, some brilliant answers. Possibly, I don't know if you agree, Sol, but possibly some of the best answers we've ever had to that question. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing all of those thoughts with us, and definitely very exciting to see where you go with the business in the next few years, because I'm sure it's going in only one positive direction. So thank you very much.
No, thank you so much for having me on. It's been absolutely great chatting with you guys.
Okay, that was unreal. Enjoyed that a lot. Always good to chat with the Bali crew, but if we get onto takeaways, happy for me to go first?
Go for it.
Okay, I would say one thing that I was very interested going into the conversation with her and also took away from what she spoke about was the importance of setting boundaries, especially in a job that like hers, where you have an emotional commitment. But in a general workplace setting, I think setting boundaries where you can carve out your own time and your own mental health versus the stresses and demands of the business just are so good for longevity. And she clearly is in a pretty high stress job, the sort of conversations she's having, but she's able to carve out a really good standard of living and happiness, quality of life, because she sets those boundaries for herself.
Definitely. Yeah, I don't want to speak hypocritically because I know this is one of my biggest issues, but with her, it was a very good message to hear that particularly when she's in an industry that could be a big burden on her mentally, she doesn't define herself just by what she's doing in her work, and she actually has a life outside of that, which is definitely very important. So yeah, good takeaway. Then the other one I thought, which she mentioned, she reiterated again at the end there when she was talking about what she would do differently, but she said it a couple of times throughout our conversation as well. And I don't want to use the cliche of trust the process because a lot of people will go for that, but the way that she developed on that, about that even if it means that you can take risk, both in terms of sacrificing time and financially, even when she was at Weight Watchers, she would come home in the evenings and she would work, and then the weekends she would work again because she was working on something she felt more passionately about on the side. And it was just interesting that even though she'd made those sacrifices, she still thinks if she went back now, she would take even more risk and just give everything into that. And I think that's a really important message for someone now who's maybe debating and weighing up in their mind, is it worth pursuing something that I care much more about? Then they might just take that risk, whether it's putting money into it or whether it's putting time into it. They should just do it.
Yeah, I hear that from her, definitely. And I love the sentiment she put on top of that, which was it's actually just not that deep. And I think that's so true, is as long as you can eat, drink, and you're fairly healthy, it's actually just not that deep. It's something you enjoy doing as opposed to something you hate doing, right? So yeah, trust the process. Couldn't agree more. Do you wanna go for the third one?
Yeah, I think the third and final one is a more general one that doesn't have to just be applied if you want to end up being a nutritionist and doing what she's doing, but can be applied to almost any path less chosen. And I thought it was amazing because I didn't really think we would touch on this topic, but she ended up bringing it up herself, and just the power of building her own personal brand around it. When you're based as a digital nomad, whether it's in Bali or otherwise, what you have to do is make sure that people know about what you're doing, path that you're on, in order to then generate it to create a career. And I think it's something that she's done brilliantly. She's really exploited that power of social media, which is starting to show people about what she cares about, and then it's helping them to care about it as well. And she's showing that she can help them through how she presents herself and her personal brand. So I thought that was a very good message to take away for any industry, any path less chosen.
Yeah, spot on. It also strengthens your stability, I think, because if you've got a brand that people care about, you can pivot much easier. Whereas if you just have no one knows about you apart from the people who are paying you money for your services, then you don't really have as much flexibility. So yeah, couldn't agree more with that. So 3 takeaways there. I would say setting boundaries and the importance of releasing that emotional burden, trusting the process and knowing that things aren't that deep, and the importance of a personal brand in order to live a successful life, especially if it's online.
Well summed up. Thank you for getting her on. I thought she was very, very interesting to listen to. And it's always great just to hear about someone who's having a really quite positive impact on society, and what she's trying to do is amazing, and she's made it into a career. So it's exactly what we're all about. Spot
on. Yeah, enjoyed that a lot. Thank you very much for coming on, Mikaela. And I hope you guys listened, subscribe, follow, share, give us a rating, and we'll catch you next week.